we're in the middle of the 308. We're actually, today going to conclude Klishim categories. And you see, we're making our way through. Okay, so we're in the middle of going through different examples of matters that are considered under the category of vessels that are designated for forbidden use, of which we rule that they may be moved on Shabbos for a permitted use or for their space, but not for saving from damage. As someone asked me this Shabbos, they want to know if they can move their umbrella. They left an umbrella in the mikvah and they were afraid it was going to get stolen. And they asked me if they can move their umbrella. So an umbrella is considered a kli shemalachti l'yisur, as you can't use an umbrella on Shabbos. And it would follow the rule that you cannot move it to save it from damage. So what would you answer him to give this guy help?
You do a trick.
Oh.
What trick?
So what did I tell him?
Put something on top of it, or you...
No, that trick doesn't work. Oh, only if it's a great loss that would work.
That's the trick you use.
And so in this situation, you can simply tell him it's a kli shemalachti l'yisur. You can't move it. You can't move it to save it from damage. But the fifth part of Shulchan Aruch is using the full breadth of knowledge to be able to give him, when available, of course. If not available, it's not available. Okay.
Chisar kiss also we can't use this.
No, chisar kiss. If that was chisar kiss, let's say it was an umbrella with a gold metal covering. Chisar kiss umbrella, very expensive umbrella. It would be a problem to do it that way. We won't be allowed to move with the shinai. Let's just summarize last week. Okay, last week we spent a long time on tefillin. We mentioned bottom line halacha is that tefillin is considered a kli shemalachti l'yisur.
One last question. Why didn't you recommend a shinui with the others, with the non-golden umbrella? Too hard?
There's no need to. There's no need for the shinai. You can do the trick. Why do you need to do a shinai?
One trick. Is a trick better than a shinui?
Yeah, it's kind of hard doing with the shinai.
Okay, I figured it's just sort of awkward.
Okay. So our final ruling regarding tefillin, after all the discussion and the back and forth and the opinions, which we said halacha l'maaseh, tefillin is a vessel that's designated for a forbidden use, as you cannot wear it on Shabbos due to one reason or another, and therefore it may be moved for its space, it may be moved to do a permitted use with it, such as to wear to scare off demons, as used to be done back in the day. We don't do this anymore, but back in the day they used to do this. And however, you cannot move it to save from personal damage happening to you, such as loss, theft, but you can move it to save it from getting damaged in and of itself, or stolen by a guy who will desecrate it. So if it falls on the floor, you can pick it up. Okay, so we're now going to go on to our next example that we were up to. We already did needles. We're up to shoes. So obviously shoes are not muktzah. That's nothing to talk about. But what about those shoe trees? I remember my dad used to have a ton of shoe trees and a ton of shoes. And they were always left inside, and I don't really know what the chachma of it is, I guess, to prevent it from... Does it really work? I mean, what does it really do?
Maintains the shape.
Yeah, but does it really maintain the shape?
Keeps it curling up. Or...
Does it really? Does it? I mean, I guess if you're wearing a shoe every, once a month or once a year, then I guess. But if you're wearing the shoe every day and just leaving it at night,
then you're the shoe tree.
You are the shoe tree. All right. Okay. The point is that if definitely shoe trees are used in the process of manufacturing shoes. Part of the molding process. They have a mold, etc. So let's read inside and the status of muktzah. So basically you, Baruch Hashem hircha v'sgvulcha, Hashem provided you a lot of wealth, and you have the 15 different shoes and 10 different types of Shabbos shoes. This company, then, they're all in their shoe trees, right? So can you take it out on Shabbos to be able to wear your shoe? That's our question. What is the status of a shoe tree? So what do you guys say before we look in? No opinions?
Oh, you were asking, sorry, the status of a shoe tree. Well, it doesn't seem to have there is a definite prohibited use. I mean, there is a definite prohibition. Did you just say that? Did you just say that?
I didn't say anything like
Now,
that.
what's the
Total
Just
open
as-
chain.
Just plain clean.
The fact that it's on your
Well,
list.
before we read inside, I would suggest that a possible prohibition is that it is forbidden on Shabbos due to the malacha of ma'abed to stretch leather. So I'll just give you an example out of the laws of muktzah. If I have a brand new a baseball glove, and they can't do anything when they're new. They you can barely move them for all baseball players. You know what I'm talking about. So there's a certain word for it. I forget what it's called, but you gotta basically break it in. I think that's the term.
Yeah, break it in, you put oil and...
Right. Well, we used to put oil and put it under a car, and a few times go back and forth and run over it
No, just put under the mattress.
under the
Yeah,
mattress.
put the baseball in
Right.
clothes.
So the point is, what you're trying to do is soften and break in the leather. It's also to do on Shabbos. Or another example, some expensive, very good leather shoes. When you first wear them, they can be very painful. It takes time for your foot to break into it. So you don't want to have something that rips into your skin. You know what I'm talking about. So you want to break into it beforehand. So can you do that on Shabbos? That's a problem to do on Shabbos because you cannot stretch or soften leather on Shabbos due to the malach of ma'abed. That is part of the process of leather making. It's a deraisa. So the purpose of this shoe tree seemingly it has to do with that malacha. I mean, right? You're putting it in for the folds and for the leather. So let's see. Let's read inside. 42. And base. Minal ben chadash ben yashin shumoda galatfus. A shoe, whether it's a new shoe still in the manufacturer's, in the manufacturing building, in their facilities, ben yashin, whether it's in your own home, you've worn this many times, which is inserted within a tfus, within what we're calling today a shoe tree. Motor l'shanta, you're allowed to take the shoe off of it. Now, that's not such a chiddush because the shoe certainly is not muktzah. So, of course, I can move the shoe off. Over here he continues, bein lishmed es atfus mitoich hamin. Whether you do it to remove the shoe tree from the shoe, bein lishmed hamin or malatfus, or to remove the shoe from the shoe tree. Either of them is permitted. Ve'en kan iser tiltal atfus. There is no prohibition here against moving the shoe tree. There's no iser muktzah here. Why? Atfus yesh lav shem kli is number one. It's a vessel. It's certainly a vessel, the shoe tree, so it's not muktzah machmas gufay. However, since it's designated for forbidden use, what's its forbidden use? As we said, ma'abed, shaping the leather. And it's permitted to move a malachta l'isser vessel for the sake of using its space. Now, what are you going to put inside that shoe tree if you're taking it off? Your shoes. Your feet. Sorry. Right, so it's mutter. Okay. Fine, so that seems like a very clear
But you
halacha.
can't put it back.
Right, so let's see over here, question and answer, you can put it back. But so far, that was classic, following all the rules we said, a classical case of, exactly fitting into the rules we learned.
Is there a bora issue at all?
Now, one second. So, what's explained? So let's now ask the question the following way: can you enter it into your shoes on Shabbos? So, if we consider a klishum lachta le'isser, the answer would be no. Because first of all, what is the purpose of this insertion? Is it for Shabbos or for after Shabbos? And it's to shake the leather. Okay. So let's see. May one enter shoe trees and shoes on Shabbos to help keep the shoes? The answer is one may do so if his intent is to simply prevent the leather from shrinking. Let's say it was raining, your leather shoes are wet. If you don't have anything inside, you're going to come back, they're not going to fit anymore. The leather's going to shrink. And we know this happens with our tefillin. Our tefillin are made of leather. When they get wet, they start coming out of shape. Liquid destroys the shape of leather. That's a fact. That's just how it is. So you want to save these shoes. So you can insert it into the shoe to prevent it from shrinking. However, you can't insert it into the shoe for the sake of stretching the leather of the shoe. That's the malach of ma'abed.
There's also another factor. There's the deodorant factor.
What's
Most of the shoe trees that they sell are made of cedar wood, so that when you stick it into the shoe, then
It gets a good smell.
it
Yeah, that's what you're saying?
Yeah, and it removes any smell that there might be from
Really, that's
perspiration.
interesting. So that's a new reason why you should use shoe trees, you're saying. It actually
Yeah,
gives,
I used
it
to,
removes a bad odor.
yeah, when I
That's
used to,
interesting.
when I used to wear shoes regularly, that they were, yeah,
Some are made of steel.
Not all
yeah,
of
the
them.
better one.
The better one, not all of them. Because you do have plastic ones that don't smell.
Yeah, and it's
Right, there were some that were metal, but
So you're asking an interesting question. You're asking an interesting question.
there's also a difference, I think, between stretching and just preserving the
Yeah,
shape
that's
that's there.
interesting.
They seem a little bit aligned, because it's sort of like you're wanting to keep the shape instead of stretch it more, I guess.
You're trying to prevent it. All I'm doing is is it considered ma'abed for me to put something that will be an impediment to prevent the leather from getting out of shape? The malacha is to go ahead and do something proactive, to go ahead and cause something to happen. Here I'm not causing anything to happen.
It's the negative.
It's just a prevention.
You're keeping it from going negative.
The child is about to shut off the light, and I boom, run in front of the switch, and he can't do it. Did I do a malacha now called ki mechabit or madlik? Did I do a malacha right now? Because right now I caused it to be on. If not for me, this thing would have turned off because of the child. I didn't do no malacha. There's no such malacha. So there's no such malacha in prevention. Malacha prevention is not a malacha. Okay. But your question is very interesting. I didn't think that that's the case, but you now enter into a second question, which is, are you allowed to give a smell to an item on Shabbos? So let's say you're putting it in just, to prevent the leather from stretching. Okay, and I don't know if that's the case. It could be most people putting it in because they feel that it's already tight and they want to stretch it out. So then for sure it would be also do on Shabbos. But if you're really putting it in just to prevent it from stretching, you then have the additional question of giving it a good smell. The answer is like this. We're going to learn later on, much later on, in this volume 2, that the Isser, the prohibition of causing or granting a good smell, a good scent to an item on Shabbos, only applies if it's for the sake of granting it a good smell. However, if it's for the sake of getting rid of the bad smell, then it's not considered that Isser. That's why you're allowed to use Listerine on Shabbos, even though it's going to give you a good mint scent, as its purpose is to get rid of the bad smell. It's written in Shulchan Aruch, you can use Listerine, like the Listerine equivalent back then, to get rid of the bad
Also
smell.
has a medicinal purpose beyond just
Listerine.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a problem. So,
That would be the couldn't use it.
kosher toothpaste, not a problem, yeah.
You can't.
I mean, toothpaste, that's,
You can't do medicinal things with you.
Right, but dafka, specifically mouthwash, is permitted.
It's a preventative.
It's permitted to be done.
If you didn't have to squeeze and you had toothpaste just sort of available sitting there and like just on the
There's
counter.
no issue of squeezing toothpaste out of the tube.
So you can use toothpaste.
Yeah, but Moshe held that there's an issue of machik using the regular toothpaste. That's why they have a concept called watered-down toothpaste or Shabbos toothpaste. But minadin, it's not necessary. You can take regular toothpaste, you can smear it. You just have to be careful not to use, a toothbrush, etc.
Is there any problem with using powder?
Powder toothpaste?
Problems with the brush.
The only problem I can think of is the issue of lush. If you add it with water and then making the thick substance, then you're doing the issue of lush, of kneading.
If it happens in your mouth, if you put it in dry.
Usually lush doesn't apply in the mouth.
Okay.
I can eat a spoon of tchina and then in my mouth have a little bit of water and make tchina mix in my mouth on Shabbos. Put some spices in when you're desperate, Okay, so one last point.
But the toothbrush is the problem, yeah?
Bottom line is that God-fearing Jews try to avoid brushing their teeth on Shabbos, not during the week. You should brush your teeth during the week. But on Shabbos we avoid it because of all the chashashis and all the issues that come up. It's just you're basically entering into dangerous territory. Think of it like, you're passing through a lake that contains many alligators, and if you go on the right rocks, you'll pass it without getting bitten, but if you slip a little bit, you're going to transgress. An alligator's going to get you, so that's why we just avoid it. We go the roundabout, we just avoid brushing teeth on Shabbos, or use Listerine, or use something else. But is it technically possible to brush your teeth with a toothbrush and avoid all the isurim? Yes, it is. You have to be very careful to follow all the different details involved, preventing squeezing, etc. Bleeding, okay. Nonetheless, the last point I wanted to bring up here is that we haven't here touched upon the subject of what about preparing for after Shabbos. I'm putting it in to prepare for after Shabbos. That should be forbidden in its own right. Nothing to do with muktzah, nothing to do with any other malacha, even if it's to prevent. The answer is that to prevent a loss, you're allowed to prepare for after Shabbos. That's why all of you, I'm sure, are accustomed to return your foods to the fridge after the Shabbos meal. Now, what right do you have to do that? When are you going to eat that food? After Shabbos. Oh.
Well, you could be eating it for your third meal.
Let's say you're not eating that food for your third meal. You have leftover children.
Oh, that could be considered preparing for after Shabbos, you're saying that could be?
Yeah.
They sure did.
What?
It is preparing for after Shabbos, but it's mutter because of what I just said before. It's going to cause a great loss of the food. It's to prevent the loss. The
Does that mean
Marshal.
like cleaning up, tidying up the house a little bit, or putting a few dishes away and stuff like that could also be a problem?
Of course, any preparation is a problem. That could be. All preparation for after Shabbos is a problem. If you're doing it for the sake of having a nice environment to be able to sit and schmooze on Shabbos or sit and learn without seeing disgusting dishes and everything, then it's what you're doing it for Shabbos. But
God, if it was like...
okay. We're going to skip the hanger. It's not really, but it's basically talking about somebody who placed a shirt inside of a hanger. Then the hanger is not muktzah. Hangers are not muktzah on Shabbos, even if this is a type of hanger that is designated for forbidden use. Like, I don't know, you hung your shirt on the back of a hammer or something. It would be permitted to move it out because you need the space to put on the shirt. Okay. Regarding clocks, I believe we already read this inside in Sif Peches. Sif Peches 308.88, and we explained there that clocks, bottom line halacha, are considered klisha malachti le'isser. That doesn't refer to forbidden use. We didn't give a clear explanation behind why. We did say that, well, clocks measure time, and measuring is forbidden on Shabbos. And you can't claim that this is for the sake of a mitzvah, even though you can measure for the sake of a mitzvah. As here, the measurement itself has no notion of a mitzvah to it. So bottom line is that there isn't a clear understanding of that it should be mutter or should be asr. On the one hand, right, it measures, but that's not what it's doing, the measuring on its own. You're not doing anything to it. So it's something that measures on its own. So because it measures on its own, therefore it should be muktzah. Bottom line, the halach is that we treat it, the custom is to treat it as a klish malach del isser. So
It'll be because you might come to wind it.
that's not, here we're talking about sun clocks and those type of clocks back in the day where there was no winding involved.
Would winding be a problem?
I'll give an example, an hourglass. Mentioned in the Alter Rebbe, whether made through sand or other means, right? So to use an hourglass in Shabbos, a sand clock, as they're known, sand glass, sand timer, sand clock, or egg timer. Okay.
Is not permissible.
So you can't use it on Shabbos because it measures.
You turn it over.
Well, that's what he's saying here, that you cannot do so as it measures, and the custom is to forbid moving it.
So a wristwatch, or so you can look at a clock.
Well, let's read it inside.
You can look at a clock because it's...
The game called boggle.
Obviously, to look at a clock is mutter.
I mean, a wall clock, the old wall clocks, you'd have to pull the chain to wind them.
I'm too young to remember those.
Grandfather type clock.
Yeah, I'm just playing with the game boggle. Sometimes it comes with the timer boggle.
Right.
Make words. Making words is probably a problem also in the boggle game.
Not necessarily. But what does it come with? Oh, it comes with a clock. You have to do it within a certain amount of time.
Yeah,
Right. Let's read it. Let's read the inside. Peches. Mashemer ala shois, that the item that tells time, ben shu shalchol, ben shu shemenacha, whether it's made of sand or any other item, and shiroyin batzel, such as you tell the time through the shadows. I guess it's talking about using the sundial, right? That's what I wrote here. Position of the sun. So the minig is to forbid it in moving it, and obviously that means it's forbidden to use it, because the extension of forbidding it even to be moved is because you can't use it. So to be able to, if you're going to treat it as muktzah, but then you're going to start using it, that makes absolutely no sense. So obviously the custom was as well to treat it as that you cannot use it on Shabbos. So the sundial has nothing to do with it, but the sand clock, you turn it over. It would be a problem to use on Shabbos. Why? To be treated as a kushan lachted le'isser. So if you want to use your sand clock to, I don't know, papers are flying away and you want them to stop flying away in the wind, so you put your sand clock on top of them. That's what to do. Or it's in the way, you want to move it off the table, just like all kushan lachted le'isser, it follows all the classical rules. So why is the minhag to forbid it? Because they compare it to measuring, which is forbidden to be done on Shabbos. The person shouldn't say, but this clock is for the sake of a mitzvah, as I learned through it. How do I learn through it? I know what time the share starts. I know what time to show up. If clocks suddenly cease to exist, it would be hectic. It would be chaos. Nobody, people wouldn't show up on time. You wouldn't even know what on time means. What is on time? Huh? If it would be, it's unbelievable how chaotic the world would become. It's like you have sometimes that the cell phones, or change the clock earlier or later, a date than it's supposed to. And you literally see tons of people end up showing up late to work. Our lives revolve around time. So it's for the sake of doing a mitzvah. You know what time mincha is, you know what time. That's the purpose of the clock. So he says you can't say that this is considered designated for a mitzvah, as measuring for a mitzvah when the measurement itself has a mitzvah involved. However, here, like to measure a mikvah that needs 40 saws, so you're measuring the exact size as that itself is the mitzvah, that it contained this amount of water. However, so this is not a mitzvah in itself. It's just you learn from it that you're able to use it to then do a mitzvah. Okay, bottom line is, as we concluded last time we read it, is a tam minhag v'minadin. In the letter of the law, there's no clear isser or clear heter in the matter. Bottom line is that we treat clocks, and for that matter, watches, as muktzah and Shabbos, kushan lachtel isser, but you may move them to tell the time. So the hourglass, I cannot turn over because that's me doing the act of measuring. The same way I cannot, we could say that I cannot go ahead and set up the time or look for the time on my Casio watch. But what I can do is I can look at my watch. So if my watch is already doing the work, then that's obviously mutter to look at it on Shabbos. You can even move it for the sake of looking at it on Shabbos. That is not a problem.
Could you use that excuse for your cell phone?
No, a cell phone is usually a muktzah machas chesron kiss. It's expensive. People are careful with it, so it goes up a steps. So, and it's also cell phone is clear that it's klisha lachta le'isser, as you can only use it with an isser, with doing electricity. It's not,
But it's on the whole time.
What do you mean it's on the whole time?
You have it set, but it doesn't.
I understand,
the
but during
screen
the
doesn't
week,
go up.
during the week, do you use it for something?
Other things, other than to tell time, but tell time is a part of it.
I understand, but it would still be considered klisha lachta le'isser.
See, you said you can't turn the hourglass over.
Yeah.
But what can you do?
No, with the hourglass you can't do anything.
I thought you said you could move it to keep
Yeah,
papers.
yeah, you can do the klisha lachta le'isser customs. Yeah, those laws don't change. Sure. Okay. Candles, candlesticks, lamps, and candelabras. Here we go. It's a big sugya. We're going to learn about this in a few different segments under different categories. Okay. So I'm just going to give a little introduction here regarding candles. By candles, we have here a few different aspects of muktzah that touch upon it. We have candles that were not lit from before Shabbos. What's their status? Like I set up candles, and we were having guests, and I set up too many, and they're just lying on the table in the tin, and nobody lit them. Can I move them? They're in the way. That's one. Two are candles, of course, that were lit before Shabbos. 3,
Now they're out.
and now they're out, or they're not out. Let's go into all cases. 3, candlesticks. Let's stand over a beautiful set of candlesticks. What are they? Whether they were lit, candle holders, or not lit. What about a candelabra? Lit and not lit. So we're going to mainly deal with a not lit case for now under the category of Pishmach to the Isser, because if you lit it, it really goes up to the Muksamach Masgufe status category. And we already discussed this when we were learning the rules of Muktzah, that once you're Muktzah Bein HaShmashos, you're Muktzah the whole Shabbos. We dealt with that there, and we said basically when you light a candle and it's lit from sunset to nightfall, it's Muktzah for the entire Shabbos, even after it goes out, completely Muktzah. So that we're going to say for the laws of Basis, etc. We're going to learn that later on.
Where does Gufo sit in it again? Where does it Gufo?
Well, it has a similar status to Machmas Gufay, which you can't move for any purpose.
What is it again? What is the meaning of Gufo?
It's Muktzah in and of itself.
Not a prohibited use, but in itself.
In and of itself, like a stone, because it's not a vessel, it has no use.
There's no use. It doesn't have a prohibited use. It just
It
doesn't.
has no use.
There's no use at all.
Exactly, yeah.
For Shabbos, or
No, has no use at all.
on Wednesday it doesn't have a use.
Correct. Like a stone.
Stones have uses, don't they? Sharpen a knife.
Only when you designate that stone for that purpose. But a regular stone on the floor doesn't have a designated use.
For anything? Throwing your friend, I don't know, you're angry at somebody and throw a stone at them.
Please, go ahead and pick up all the stones you find in Sfas and try selling them.
Okay, interesting. Nate, give another example just real quick so I get that nailed down a little better.
A leaf.
A leaf, not a prohibited use, it just doesn't have any use. On Shabbos it doesn't have use.
And during the week,
You look at it, it's pretty, it's.
a leaf on the floor that's wet from the rain.
It's an ugly leaf. It should be fascinating.
Okay.
I don't know. Okay.
Not considered,
We'll go
not
back to it.
confusing at all. It's not considered a use. It has to be a designated use that man has created into a use.
Whether prohibited or not, I mean, prohibited.
Correct. Okay, we'll get to that. Gufa is another subject.
But we never did it, we didn't do anything.
No, we touched upon it. We mention it all the time, but we haven't officially done it. Okay, so let's begin. This is going to take us now. We're going to take a little break from 308, as the laws of candles are really brought right after the laws of Shabbos davening, prior to the laws of eating the meal. That's when it's relevant. You have the candles on the table. So that's why it was already introduced in chapter 279. So let's see. 279. Reish Ayin Tes. Sifat. Ner shediku b'ayim le'idyayin. A candle that was lit from before Shabbos. The dalak arba achshach hashayfa, and it remained lit until the nighttime. Afa b'shekaba achakach, salatatik l'Shabbos kula. Even though it extinguished afterwards, it's forbidden to be moved throughout the entire Shabbos. Even if you want to move it for a use, you want to, or you want to move it in order to make space on your Shabbos table, it's forbidden. It is not similar to other vessels designated for forbidden use, which are permitted to be moved for these purposes. As we already learned in 308, Okay, so this is basically explaining the idea we already learned in the past of a basis, that it was, since it was muktzah during the Hashmashis, due to the fire, the flame, therefore it's muktzah the whole Shabbos. Okay. Afilu menorah gedola shadola kol ner echem b'yom naskul basis v'nesr b'tut b'chol Shabbos. Afilu lach shekol ner. Even if you have a candelabra with 10 branches, and you lit only one of those branches, the entire thing becomes muktzah for the whole Shabbos.
You're talking about the candelabra now, not the candles. Right?
Well, now we just brought up the candelabra, the second.
So the scenario is you got candles on a candelabra, you lit them for all.
You lit one candle.
One candle.
You have 10 branches on the candelabra, you lit one candle, it stayed lit till Ben Hashmashis. The entire candelabra is muktzah for the whole Shabbos. אבל בשבס האחרס, מותר לטאטה נבע המנהל, צריך גוף למקיים, כשלא לקום מחסק Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah. So here says the Alter, the halach that we were waiting for, and that is, if you did not light this candle from before Shabbos, you do not light anything on the candelabra before Shabbos, then the candelabra or the candle, even the ner, has a status of a vessel that's designated for a prohibited use, which is to light it. That's what it's there for, to be lit. But nonetheless, the advantage of this, we gain that it may be moved for its space or for a use. So in the case I gave you, where we have the candles were set up on the Shabbos table, but were never lit, the guests didn't come, or we prepared too many, you need the space, pick it up, it's not a problem, you can move it.
Otherwise, they're MMI, right?
They're MMI, correct? They are MMI.
Same status.
So you can move it for the space.
Why do we start out in this subject, in this chapter, talking about the Bein Hashmashos scenario? Why don't we just ask, forget about what happened on Bein Hashmashos, is a candelabra, unlit, whatever, the candelabra alone, with no candle on it?
Yeah, so that's what he gets to in the end.
Is it muksa?
That's the last line.
Okay.
Okay? Let me deal with that in the last line. Okay, now the question that we can very validly bring up is the following. Perhaps this discussion and this ruling that a candle is considered a vessel designated for prohibited use and would have the allowances that we said only applies to the type of candles that were used back in the day, where you had oil candles. It was just like similar to what some people use for dressing on their table, to pour dressing. It's basically like back then it was called a candle. It's called, candle holder. You put oil inside, you'd have a wick, you would light it. Today we use it as a dressing dispenser. You know what I'm talking about? Okay? So those things are vessels. They're designated for forbidden use. They're designated for lighting candles, but they are perfect vessels. You can use them from other things. You can use them for salad dressing, as I said. However, who says that this Klisha Malachta L'Isser designation of these items applies likewise to wax candles of today? What purpose does a single wax candle have?
To light it, just like the wire.
So it's a Klisha Malachta L'Isser. What other purpose does it have?
Decoration?
Decoration.
Light the room, to make light for the room.
Other than lighting, which is forbidden to do on Shabbos, does it have any other purpose?
Not really. It could be
Use it
pretty.
for lubricating in certain circumstances.
Yeah? Do most people use it for that? Do most people think about that? I don't think so.
Probably not.
Probably not. So here our very valid question is perhaps candles made of wax. I understand if you have an oil candle, okay? You took your salad dressing, dispenser, you put oil inside, you put a wick, and you didn't light it. You forgot to light it, you lit your regular candles. So I can go ahead now and use this to pour on my salad because it wasn't lit. It's a Klisha Malachta L'Isser, and I can move it for permitted use. However, the candle, the wax candle, the stick that's sitting on the candelabra that was never lit. So the candelabra, I understand, what use does a candle have other than lighting it? So just like we explained by Muksamachas Chesrim Kiss, that an item that's designated for forbidden use and you're particular not used for anything else goes up a status because it has no use on Shabbos in the end of the day, perhaps let's apply that same logic towards candles, wax candles. That since they're only actual real usages for lighting purposes and you can't light them on Shabbos, then they're completely muktzah. Not because you're particular, just because there is nothing else to use them for. They have no other use.
And that counts? That would...
So that's our question. That's our question. And in truth, the Aruch HaShulchan on this chapter brings us down and he says wax candles are completely muktzah because they have absolutely no other use. Go with the same train of thought we use for Muksamachas Chesron Kiss. Just like there we applied the rule, if you don't have another use on Shabbos, it's completely muktzah. So to here. Therefore he says that wax candles, and not just wax candles, but he would extend this line of thought. It's a huge revolution that's going on here in Klisha Malachta L'Isser. Pay attention to what this does for us. This blows up everything we learned so far of Klisha Malachta L'Isser. So far we learned, if it's there as a forbidden use and you're not particular to use it for other things, it's okay. It's a Klisha Malachta L'Isser. You can move it for its space and for its use, permitted use. Now we're suddenly saying, hold your horses, it depends. Do you have a use that you would usually use this for? If you don't, like the candle case, then it would be muksa. Let's take, for example, a pen. We said a few times that a pen or a pencil, which is not very expensive, is a klish malach to the isser, and you may move it due to its space, to use its space. You may move it to scratch your back. But on the other hand, now that we have this Aruch HaShulchan, we can say perhaps it would be completely muksa, and you can't move it at all. Why?
Because it's just like the candle, there's nothing.
What real use do you have of it? Is it designated for back scratching? I mean, okay, if it happens to be there, you'll use it, but it doesn't really have any other use. And we're basically, with this train of thought, we've pretty much taken a huge amount of objects from Klishim Lach to the Isser and thrown them to the completely muksa category.
And that's called, in all cases, Kisron Kiss?
Well, it's not really chesron kiss, because it's not because I'm worried, it's just, it has no use.
Right.
So the question is, we know this is new material, this is revolutionary, and the question is, do we hold of this revolution? Do you have to start, whenever you have a klishim lach this item, in addition to figuring out that you're not particularly using something else, you have to say, well, do I have a normal, usual, common use of it other than its forbidden use? And what would be our case with the unlit candles? So let's see in the Alter Rebbe, let's, as they say, you be the judge.
Unlit candles, what we just talking about.
Let's go to 30832, huh?
And even if you were gonna use it for a lubricant, it'd probably be usher on Shabbos anyway.
Unlit candles.
It would be us because we're machik, right?
A wax candle, we're talking about, that's what we're back to.
Yeah, that's an example. That's the case that Aruch HaShulchan speaks of, but it's a general rule to all muktzah. So the pen would also be there. You want another example? Okay, hammer would be one that everyone agrees to because hammer is something you do in multi-usages. But a pen, certainly, that's what it's there for. It's there to write, and that's it. Or to erase, So there's so many things that would fall under that. An inexpensive cell phone, a cheap cell phone. A cheap camera. Anything that's forbidden use, which you're not very particular about, would usually fall under this category. A ruler. What good does a ruler have other than, drawing and doing the Isser things with it? It really doesn't do anything else.
Smack your kids in
Why did this require such
We're talking about nowadays.
Why did this require such a revolution, or why is this called a revolution?
It's a revolution because it changes the whole way of thinking of Klisha Malach de Isser. It changes our whole perspective of what falls under that category.
When did it change? For centuries they didn't think it this way and they came up with a new idea. What do we mean it changed? When did it change?
Change means for our table.
Oh, you mean this new concept? Oh, no, we just haven't had this concept.
Correct. But let's see if we hold with it. Maybe we don't hold with it. So let's see inside. Okay. We're looking at the Alter Rebbe now in Halacha 33, chapter 308. Back to 308. He writes the following: Shivrei psila. Broken pieces of a wick, which are no longer designated to be lit as a candle. They're completely muktzah, and they have no use. So again, a wick which was already used, pre-used wick, has no longer any use. It's completely muktzah. But a full wick, even if you lit it one time in the week, or last Shabbos, but it still has a use, there's still enough left of it. It is considered a vessel, but it has a status of a vessel that's for good use. Which follow the classical rules that you can move it for its space or for a permitted use. Okay, and so to a complete whole wax candle, or a fat. Even if it was lit one time during the week or last Shabbos, and this Shabbos you didn't light it, it's considered a vessel designated for a forbidden use. What did Alter Rebbe just say? He just completely negated Aruch HaShulchan.
Right, because he just made it MMI, nothing more.
Yeah, he writes very clearly. Before we said in 279, well, maybe it's talking about the dressing dispenser type candle. That it's a vessel, has many usages, not just for lighting a candle of oil. But here, the Alter Rebbe clearly states, no, even a wax candle, which chimingly has no other designated use other than to light it, is Klisha Malach to the Isser.
It's still only a thing of
Exactly. It doesn't budge from its status, and therefore Halacha L'Maisa, and this is how most poskim rule, not like Aruch HaShulchan. despite the technical arguments that we can have over it and why should it be this way, why shouldn't it be this way, bottom line is that it is not completely muksa, and you may move a pen to scratch your back, and you may move a candle to scratch your back, or to move it out of the way. But what really is the defense against the question and subsequent opposite ruling of the Aruch HaShulchan? I mean, he seems to be saying something very logical, right?
Did you just say you could use a pen under this logic, you could use a pen to
Yes.
scratch your back?
No, not just under this logic, under this ruling. We haven't yet given it a logic.
Yeah.
What is the logic? So, the suggested logic is like this. And by the way, there is a little bit of a contradiction from 308, Halacha 2. Let me just see if it's 2 or 3. Okay, we're going a little deep. We're doing some pilpul here. We're just going to do one more piece here in this discussion. This is a debate that's many kohelim have. It's one of their very strong sugyas, their strong topics in halacha that they, when they learn Hilchos Muktzah, they have a lot of discussion on and debates on. It's a very interesting and juicy subject.
Opposing entity that is called the Aruch HaShulchan.
Aruch HaShulchan was a Paisik. He lived in the 1800s. He was the Rav of Nevardik, Rabbi Yechiel Michal Epstein. He was the father of the author of the Sefer called Torah Tmima, the Sefer that the Chumash that the Rebbe would use, Torah Tmima. Anyways, they say he was a student of the Tzemach Tzedek. He got smicha by the Tzemach Tzedek. He was a Litvak. He was the Mara Asra of the Litvish world before the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah only became the Mara Asra and the accepted Pesach for the Litvish world in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. But until then, the Aruch HaShulchan was the Mara Asra. He was the main Pesach for all of Lithuania and Europe.
The Mechaber and the Ramah was.
No, I'm talking, that's 300 or 400 years ago. That's Mechaber Ramah, 500 years ago. I'm talking about
More recent.
2 generations ago.
The current strain.
It's a Tzedek stuff.
A little past the Tzemach Tzedek, yeah. He passed away in, I believe, the early 1900s. Aruch HaShulchan. Okay, so let's see over here in 308 Halacha 2, where the Alter Rebbe here introduces the idea of something that's a vessel. It's not completely muksa on Shabbos because it has a use, etc. And then he says here in the end, a candle, kugeiner yashin shel cheres, an old earthenware candle. So let's talk about our dressing dispenser, which has been turned into a candle. Okay, it's been used now already for many weeks. It's actually made of earthenware. It's mucky. It has ash in it. You would never use this for salad dressing again. Literally, it has no use but to light candles. So what's its status? It has no other use now. So he says like this. Even if this oil candle is no longer fit for any other use, due to its repulsiveness and its awful scent, so you won't use it for anything else. Such as another example, a candle, even if it's made of metal, that you lit, neft is kerosene. Kerosene has a terrible smell. You used it, it's a kerosene candle. What use does it have on Shabbos? Nothing. Afal pike, nonetheless, ainly din muksas betiltul, does not have a status of complete muksa. Once again negating the Aruch HaShulchan. But then he says the reason why. Here, this is what gets us in trouble. These last 7 words. As nevertheless, it's fit to cover vessels with it. So the Alter Rebbe is clearly he's clearly accepting some of the notion of the Aruch HaShulchan. In other words, he agrees that if you really have no other use for an item other than its prohibited use, it's completely muktzah. He agrees with the notion. As that's the rule. The rule is, that's what muktzah is, set aside from your mind. So what difference does it make why it's set aside from your mind? So we gave a rule of muktzah machas and kiss that if it's very expensive and you won't use it for anything else, that's why it's set aside, so it's completely muktzah. But in this case, we have a scenario that it's not fit for any other use. And that's why it's set aside from your mind, and that's why it should be completely muktzah, like the Shulchan says. So here he has to come up with a use that it's fit for, and therefore it's not completely muktzah. So what does he say that this disgusting, repulsive candle dispenser, the vessel of the candle can be used for? He says, nonetheless, it's not muktzah because you can use it to cover vessels.
How could you use?
Back then, people used to even save shards. Let's say a vessel broke. Let's say you were carrying a vase or carrying a bowl with salad and it broke. So instead of everyone getting upset, I can't believe you did this, say, oh my gosh, we have now 4 new vessel covers. Beautiful. Okay, they used to save shards of things to use as a cover. That's brought down in the Gemara, brought down in Shulchan Aruch. So this is discussed. You can use it to cover something. So it has a use. So now
How does a candle fit into that?
a wax candle?
Yeah.
Exactly. So this is the contradiction. If for every single thing that you want to define as klisha malachta l'isser, permit moving it for its space, or to make a permitted use, you need to figure out a permitted use of it that it's used for. So he really does accept the notion of the Aruch HaShulchan. So why did he rule what we read later on in Sif Lamed Gimel that a wax candle is not muktzah? What use does it have? So the answer is the following: we're trying to dilute the level of dispute between the two different schools of thought. Okay, the dispute is not really so far. There's a lot of agreement here. We all agree that it has to have a use to be not muktzah. If it doesn't have any fit use, it goes back to being like a stone, goes back to being like a piece of paper. Remember we said a paper that's meant for writing, even though it's a kli, since you can't write it in a Shabbos, it loses its vessel status as it has no other use, and therefore it's completely muktzah. So it has to have a normal use that it can still be used for it to not be muktzah. So the machlekes is as follows: how common of a use must it have? The Aruch HaShulchan feels that it has to have a real usage that's common to be used during the week, even if you personally don't commonly use it, but it's something that's commonly used during the week. In other words, it's not a physical possibility of a use, but it's a use that can be done, that's usually done.
He wouldn't go with a pen scratching the back.
So therefore he says you can't, because a pen is usually only used for writing. It's not usually used for anything else, unless you personally designate it for another purpose. So therefore he would say it's completely muktzah. So to the wax candle. However, the Alter Rebbe and the majority of poskim who all record the wax candle case, they say no, they don't take it to such an extreme. Anything that you would be willing to make a use for, even if it's not a common use. I'm willing to use the wax candle to scratch my back if I need to. It's a long wax candle that reaches. Or I'm willing to use the wax candle to put on top of pieces of paper to stop the papers from flying away.
With your umbrella example.
Yeah, I'm willing to use it for that purpose. It's not like the case here of a disgusting, repulsive, I'm going to use it to scratch my back. I would never use it to scratch my back. I have to scratch my back if I do use it, right? I'm not going to use it to put under my papers. It's going to dirty my papers. It has literally no other use except for, so that's what you have to come up with, covering of a vessel. But by other things, you can always figure out things that you would use it for, even though it's not common. So that's what seemingly is the dispute here. And clearly we follow not the Aruch HaShulchan's approach, but the other approach, as I said. And therefore, it's not just the Alter Rebbe, it's most poskim. But you do have some God-fearing Jews who do accept the Aruch HaShulchan's notion, and therefore they will say, no, you can't move the pen on Shabbos, but I need the space. No, you can't. It has no use. And you don't know what they're talking about. Like, what do we learned the whole class about this? Klisha Malachta L'Isser, and you start, giving him over, and maybe he even doesn't know. He was taught at smokes, he doesn't even know why. Could be that he was taught based on the Aruch HaShulchan.
And in the end, the ace card, wild card of Shinu, you can...
Yeah, everyone agrees, so that always works. That always works.
What can you use? You can use a pen to scratch your back. Okay.
You can use it you can use a pen to save your page. You put the over there. It has so many usages that you can think of. That the point is that the reason why a use had to be brought up in the case here is because it's an item that happens to be that because of its repulsiveness, you will not use it for anything else. So the Alter Rebbe had to come up with something that it's used for in order so it doesn't become completely muktzah. Okay.
So then what is left over in the Alter Rebbe's world of something that is completely not usable and not
Nothing really. Everything that's Kli Shel Malachta L'Isser pretty much is Kli Shel Malachta L'Isser.
So it has to
Because you could figure out, unless you're particular, not to use it for anything else.
So it has to be like Ufo or Yisrael.
Exactly, or Fesser and Kiss, exactly, exactly. And by the way, another one of the, what you can say, attacks against the position of the Aruch HaShulchan is that he pretty much created a new category of muktzah. Why wasn't this category written in the Gemara? Why do we, all the classical poskim only bring up a certain number of categories with names? Suddenly this huge new category revolutionized, doesn't have a name, it's the nameless category that fell between the cracks, so his approach is very, very difficult to accept. Okay, let's just finish a few questions here and we'll conclude for the day. Okay, candelabra I'll leave for next week. We'll discuss the candelabra. It's its own separate problem it has with it. But let's deal with candlesticks. Candlesticks that were not lit from before Shabbos. So we said before they're considered, a candle is Kli Shel Malachta L'Isser. What about candlesticks? So a simple candlestick, the candle holder, yes. A simple candle holder would be Kli Shel Malachta L'Isser. That's what they're made for. However, what about expensive candlesticks, like silver candlesticks? Maybe they would become Chesron and Kiss. I understand that you didn't light it before Shabbos, and I understand that it's designated for forbidden use, but will you use them for anything else? You're very careful with them. They're made of silver. So some places can rule that candlesticks made of silver, expensive ones, even if they have not been lit before Shabbos, they are nonetheless completely muktzah due to a different reason. Muktzah Chesron and Kiss. However, other places can suggest that perhaps they're not muktzah, as they're also for the purpose of decoration. They're usually placed in, in an area where you can see them behind a glass, opening where you can see, and for the purpose of decorating your home. And since it also serves a dual purpose of decoration, therefore it wouldn't necessarily be completely muktzah. So this is a machlekes by expensive candlesticks. Okay, next week we're going to go to candelabras.